It's just so crazy that, like, I'm gonna drive home and I'm probably gonna drive past
Smoke.
shit. Well, yeah, I'm probably gonna drive past shit like that was going on with this.
I wonder if any of the roads closed down over there.
Well, I got woken up. What was it?
It's just crazy because, like, this was happening as I was leaving. Like, I was probably going
Just past it. As
yeah,
it was...
just passing this as it was going on, and like I didn't know.
Yeah, because it happened like 3:30, 3:35.
And that's about. I mean, I was more in Bedford, or I was more in Strongsville at that point. But I mean, I was still like
right
a couple minutes out of being right by that.
That crazy fire in Willoughby.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a call. It was on Thursday at like 6:30 in the morning from Mrs. Bailey, literally by her work.
Really?
Yeah, and that was legit. Like everything burnt down. They're talking about how they were lucky that the siding on the buildings around it didn't catch on fire.
Really?
It melted. It was that hot.
I was gonna ask, have you guys ever been like close proximity when something like that was happening, and either like you didn't know it at the time, or like saw it as it was playing out?
I mean, I guess this
today, right?
Yeah, I guess this for me, but
I mean, statistically speaking, we're bound to have had that happen.
Yeah,
it's just putting yourself in that time frame and not realizing it, you know?
The freakiest one that I was by was in 2012, the Chardon school shooting. So I was heading up there. I was looking at it was a 2001 Pontiac Grand Am.
Good car.
And I ended up buying it. It was $2,500. It was a great deal. It was made in Canada, so it was in kilometers per hour. Anyways, but we're going down the highway and we see like 10 or 15 cop cars just right past us, and we're going, you know, what the hell's going on?
Right.
Didn't really pay any attention to it. Went and looked at the car, ended up buying the car. I'm driving it back, turn on the radio, and they're talking about it. So the school shooting happened. It was maybe 10 miles away, and we drove past the exit. So we were probably within 2 miles.
That's really crazy.
And then when I was in second or third grade, I was at Seville Elementary, and they have a bronzing factory right there in town. So like literally, like here's the elementary school, post office, bronzing factory.
Okay.
We're outside at recess and we hear the alarms going off, and we just hear like people screaming. And we're like, what? Like, what's going on? And immediately the teachers are like, let's go inside. We got to go inside. Line up. We got to go back inside. And we're like, all right, that's weird. You know, we're just on swings, whatever.
Right.
My dad worked there. My buddy Tyler's dad worked there. That was like the place where a lot of the dads worked. It was so basically they would make bronze metal there, Seville bronze. And one of the giant bats of melted metal spilled onto somebody.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, something happened and it spilled onto the guy. And I just remember my mom picked me up, my buddy's mom picked him up, and of course we lived right across the, the apartment complex from each other. And so we got home, we're thinking it's one of our dads.
Right.
And ended up, they were fine, but it was a friend of theirs. And I just remember my dad talking about how the guy's like laying there. And he's like, they're trying to talk to him, make sure he's okay. And the guy's telling my dad, he's like, Jake, take my watch off. Take my watch off. My dad gave me this watch. Like, take the watch off. And his skin, when it was burning, went around the watch.
God.
That's crazy.
Like because it was that bad. I mean, that was maybe 1,000 feet away.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, stuff like that, but not that it's ever happened to me.
Right. Right.
But yeah, you asked like in the vicinity. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That was weird. That was very weird.
Mike keeps cutting out.
Yeah, I've never I mean, again, besides this, I've never thankfully, I've never been too close to like a huge freak accident or anything like that, you know? Not that I can recall. Like, I mean, I knew someone who was in Paris at the time of that big...
You know who they say is in Paris?
Yeah.
The French.
I can't say. But
the French.
Yeah, they're there too. Yeah. But... I had a friend who was in France, in Paris, during the Paris street bombing that happened our senior year, I think 2018.
Yeah.
That was kind of crazy. I mean, but other than that,
that's a while.
Yeah. He was saying how he had walked down that road that the bus bombing like took place on. He had walked down it like the last 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Seth of the Seth Williams podcast.
Yeah, go check it out. Great show.
Yeah, good show. He was in Memphis over the summer when the shooting was going on.
Oh, wow.
He's just out walking around.
Oh,
Didn't know what was going on.
See, that's the kind of thing I'm like, you're just out and about and stuff's happening.
And
actually, I do have a good one.
They said that they were driving around and they noticed that a street was closed and the cops were down there. So they did what anybody else would do, stop and they're looking.
Yeah.
What's going on down there? What are you
doing? A little rubbernecking?
So he's like, we get back to the hotel, turn the TV on. We find out there's an active shooter.
Wow.
He's like, we were just walking around this city the entire afternoon as this was going on.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, again, with active shooters, my mom was in Vegas during the Vegas shooting.
Really?
Yeah. She was like, in downtown. She was there for like a work outing.
Yeah.
And her whole company happened to be there and just happened. She said they were like walking around that night and that whole area was closed off. And she was like asking people, what's going on? What's happening?
That's insane.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of, I have two. One, so the second one is a lot more recent, and it's not anything like, and that wasn't a big deal or anything. It's just, you ever listen to like the police blotters, the police scanners, the radars and stuff like that, and just hear the like pretty much a crime watch, right?
Right.
I used to do that a lot in Parma, and once I moved out here, it's a lot more tame out here, so nothing ever really happens, and speeding tickets and things like that. So deleted it, but I'm scrolling Facebook the one night, and I think Jake Schrader was over. We were watching something in the garage on the TV. We're just sitting out there by the fire or whatever. It's probably just around midnight, and my phone starts blowing up in the community page. I'm like, oh, I never hear shit from that. It's usually like, oh, there's a free dishwasher or whatever.
Right.
It's like, anyone have any updates on the shooting at the bar up the street? Heard gunshots, saw there was a confrontation, cops called. I'm like, oh shit, and you guys know the bars are literally at the end of the road right here. Like we could walk there, take probably 25 minutes.
Right.
So there's a big shooting up there. And so I'm sitting in the garage. It's outside. We're watching TV or whatever. And I'm just kind of following this scene like, okay, where's this guy at? Because the last thing that was on there was like 35 minutes ago. It was like, cops were called to the scene. It was a man and a woman arguing about something. The guy pulled out his gun and shot in the air and scared off one of the workers at the bar, but then he fled. So I'm like, oh shit, this dude's just on the run.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
It's like, that's good. So I remember sitting in the garage with my gun and being like, all right, well, what can I do at this point other than have something on me? Crazier than that. That was because obviously nothing happened. They ended up catching the guy. I didn't hear anything for like the next day. So I'm like, okay, cool. This dude's still out. But crazier than that, in Parma, Julie had an apartment.
I have a good one.
Parma.
I have a good Parma one too. After yours, yeah, there's always good
Parma. and at Parma at 3 a.m, what else is there to do? Especially when you don't have cable. Yeah. So we're watching satellite TV in an apartment in Parma that's very spotty reception.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I need to do something. I don't know why. I'm like, I want a slushie. I really want a blue slushie right now. I'm like, where the fuck around is a blue slushie? So I'm Googling it, and there's a 7-Eleven down the street. It's like a couple miles away. I'm like, sweet. We'll get in the car. We'll go up there. I'll get a slushie. We'll come back. Right. That's all it is.
Right.
So get in the car. Go up to this. I'm sorry. It was a Sunoco. A Sunoco on the corner. We get up there. Go to the Sunoco. Pull in, and I'm looking on my phone. I'm like, oh, it looks like they're closed. All lights are off. No one's there. I'm like, looks like they're closed. Lights are on inside, but all like the pump lights are on.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I've ever seen like a slushy machine at a Sunoco. They're like smaller stations. There's a 7-Eleven down the street. We'll go to that one instead, right? So we pull in. We stopped at the pump for a minute, evaluated the scenario. No one, like, obviously there was a guy inside. There was a couple people hanging out outside, 2 or 3 people like in a bike outside. But we're the only ones there in a car. So I'm like, yeah, we'll just go down the street, go to the 7-Eleven. We go to the 7-Eleven. I get my slushie. On the way to 7-Eleven, 2 SUVs, police SUVs pass us with their lights on. I'm like, okay, it's Parma. It's 3 a.m. I'm sure some shit's going on, right? They pass us. We go to the 7-Eleven. I get my slushie, get back in the car. As we're coming back, a side street completely blocked off with not only these SUVs, but like what looks like a big SWAT van, like big ass armored van.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's something. Turn on your police blotter, right? Turns on the police blotter. We're listening. Drive back. More cop cars just kind of lining the street. Get back to the apartment. Sitting in the parking lot and listening to this thing. And there was a shooting at that Sunoco.
Oh.
Someone came in, robbed the place at gunpoint, shot, and fled to that next street over and barricaded themselves inside.
That's crazy.
To the point where we stayed up to like 5 or 6 in the morning listening like, okay, well, are they going to get this guy? What's going on? So he barricades himself inside. He's obviously armed. And the last thing I remember reporting before I went to bed, just a couple hours later, is they couldn't get a way in. They had cops surrounding the place, but they didn't want to like break in apparently.
Right.
So they sent a drone in through the window. The guy shot the drone, and that's when they're like, all right, we got to go in.
So
I was almost at that Sunoco.
When I was a kid, I lived in an apartment complex in Seville.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't allowed to have dogs. Okay, you were not allowed. But there was this one apartment. It just so happened they had this big Rottweiler, sweetheart of a dog. Like we would play with it. They would keep it in the garage, and we would remember like this dog was so nice until you put it in the garage. It would like manically scratch at the floor. To the point like it's breaking its nails. It's scratching at the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So those people ended up moving. I mean, like the garage floor was ruined. They had to replace it. They started breaking up the cement and everything. They found a body.
Oh,
what?
That's crazy.
Now I'm like 5. I don't know what's going on. I just know that there's cops there. The cops are cool with us. They're joking around with the kids. Like they're throwing footballs with us and stuff. Right. So that's all we know.
Mm.
So they like they pull everything up, move it to the side. And we just remember this giant pile of mulch. And we used to like play in it. Like it was like rubble and stuff. We were just playing it. And I found this thing. It looked like a raptor claw. Okay. It's like yay big.
Yeah.
It was like this.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah. So I would take it home and I would just on like the table, the counter, like the raptors would do in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Not thinking anything of it, put it away, whatever. So they end up finding the skeleton. Like it's legit. Like somebody was fucking dead.
Yeah.
So I show my mom and she starts freaking out. It looked like a floating rib.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's crazy.
So I was just walking, like the kids were just walking around
had some bones.
as kids.
Just a human rib.
Right. Like literally, like between playing War and we would play Desert Storm. So we would fill this is how you know I was poor when I grew up. We would fill a pop bottle up with like dirt.
Yeah.
Like that very light powdery dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And we would chuck it across this field. Mm-hmm. And then as the dust would fall, we're like, Desert Storm! Like, we're just like shooting, being dumb. But yeah, so it ended up like we each had like little pieces of bone.
Wow.
That's
because
so
we would just grab the stuff out of the rubble, not thinking.
Right.
And because like I had a rock collection growing up. So I'm like, oh, this is a cool looking thing. You know? But yeah, it ended up being like a floating rib. Or at least it looked like a floating rib.
Did you do anything with it once you found out?
No, I kept it for years as a kid.
Not good.
I honestly, it might still be in a box somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a good possibility it's in a box.
You need a spare rib, you know?
Yeah, like it was.
Sometimes you need one.
It was the weirdest thing because like they were interviewing like all of our parents. Wow. Like I remember like Fox 8, Channel 3, Channel 5, all of them were there. And like camera in like their faces just, did you know that there was a body in the bed? No, I didn't know there was a body. Like, what the fuck kind of question is
we
that?
just kind of kept it there.
That was our little secret.
It wasn't hurting no one.
I guess it was while they were building the place, there was a disagreement between the two people that were trying to buy or own whatever it was. Like one owner was trying to buy out the other, vice versa. And the one guy there was an accident and he died.
Oh.
And they ended up finding the body. It was the craziest thing.
That's crazy.
I can never find stuff about it. But like, it's one of those, like, I remember it happening.
Yeah.
My mom remembers it happening.
Yeah.
But, like, we can never find anything on it.
That's insane.
I have a story like yours, Jordan, about the, I was at so we went to Sheetz before this. And I was telling you how I went to the Sheetz in Parma all the time after work. And I would get off late. I'd get off at like 11:30, 12. And so the one night I go to the Sheetz and I order food like normal and everything's fine. And I was walking, I was like looking for a drink out over by like the drink section.
Slurping down a slushie.
Yeah. Out by the Tasty Freeze.
Yeah. Sucking on them chili dogs.
But I saw a regular that like came into the vape shop that I worked at. And I knew specifically it was him because he would always wear this distinct like big puffer jacket that had a bunch of Nickelodeon characters on it.
Yeah. And
I was like, oh, it's that guy. And I like kind of gave him a nod. And then I had my little ticket and I had my drink and I walked up to the register, and the puffer jacket guy was at like the self checkout area, which is like right next to the register at the specific sheets that I was at. But so as I'm walking up to the register, I turned to look out to see my car. I was like checking to see what pump it was on, see, okay, I put gas in my car. What pump am I at? And I look out, and there are cop cars all around the parking lot surrounding my car.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And so
what is in my car?
Yeah,
right.
And so this is as I'm walking to the register. And so I'm walking to the register, I see I see all the cop cars like surrounding my car, and then I turn and look back, and I see the puffer jacket regular guy, my regular from my shop at the self checkout. And I look at him, and a cop walks in behind him and immediately just starts arresting him. And I'm like in the middle of checking out, and I'm like, can I still check out? Like, can I still pay for this stuff?
Am I good?
Yeah, can I still pay for this stuff? And so I pay for this stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, that's really weird that this regular guy just got arrested, like this guy that I kind of quote unquote know just got arrested in front of me. I go wait by like the food station to wait for my food, and I look out, and I see at the pump directly like next to mine in the same drive area, where like you'd be parking opposite
the
direction.
Opposite, yeah.
Right. There's a white truck, and
was it a Ford Bronco?
It might have been. Fuck. It was OJ. It was OJ the whole time. He was right there with me.
Fuck.
But some guy gets out of like the passenger side of the truck and starts like wrestling with a cop, like starts trying to like run away from a cop and like wrestling with the cop, and the cop tackles him down to the ground. I'm like, what the fuck? I have to go out. Like, I have to go out there. I have to pump gas in a second here. Like, I have to wait for my food, and I have to be out in the middle of this. And so I put my gas and I leave. And I find out later that regular and some buddy of his, I guess, had stolen a truck, and they had robbed 3 gas stations on that road, on that same main road that I'm sure on that same main road. They had robbed 3 other gas stations, and they were about to rob that one.
When was this?
Like 7 months ago. 8 months ago.
I reported on that.
Yeah,
did
probably.
You really?
Yeah, I did.
Probably.
That's why, like, as soon as he said 3 or 4, and I'm like, wait a second. I want to say that they were just in court like a month ago.
Probably.
Wow.
Yeah. I was
small world.
I saw myself on the news. Like, I saw my car and I saw myself pull out on the news.
Really?
Yeah, because I passed by the truck and I like, I waved to it.
I don't know why when you were talking about that, a memory came back. When I was a manager at the KFC Taco Bell in Burbank, it is no longer a thing. It's now an Arby's.
I miss the duals.
Right.
Shops. Like, make a comeback, boys.
So one of my employees had an abusive boyfriend, and I didn't realize how bad it was until like it was time for her to go home. She was off at like 7 that night, and she was waiting. It was a situation where they had one car, so he would come pick her up, and he was weird. Like, he would sit in there and watch and make sure you're not flirting with nobody.
Yeah,
that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And she was pretty, she wasn't bad. And she was a great employee, very sweet girl. And I'm sitting there in the office, and she comes in, and like, when you can tell somebody's on the verge of a breakdown, but they're trying to hold it together. So she walks in, and she's like, "Okay, hey, I'm done." I'm like, "All right." Like, with your shift, like, you got everything done? Yeah. And like, voice is shaky, and I'm like, "Are you good?" And she's just like standing there and quiet, and I'm like, what's going on? You all right? I'm like, "Close the door, sit down." She tells me that her boyfriend has been watching her from the parking lot and has been basically threatening her in text messages, saying that, "I saw the way you were talking to that guy," talking about me. "I saw the way you were talking to that guy. Why are you flirting with him? Why is he over there standing by?" Because I was training her.
Right.
Like, she was still somewhat new.
Right.
And so, like, literally, when you get out here, I'm going to beat your fucking ass, you whore. Yeah. And I go, "All right, sit down." I'm like, "How long has this been going on?" So we talk, and I go, "I'm calling the police." No. I go, no. Because at this point, I'm threatened.
Right.
I go, "And I don't know what this guy's going to do." Like, so this is how it's going to go. It's 10 o'clock. I'm going to go lock the doors. He's not going to come in here. I'm going to lock the doors. We're going to sit down. I'm going to call the police. I actually called the police before I went to go lock the doors. So the police show up. Okay. It does have a little bit of a funny turn. I promise. It's not like a serious story. So the police show up, and literally it's 3 cars, and they like box him in. Because I tell him, hey, he's sitting in the red car out there. It's the only one parked down the closest to the door. He's here to pick up the girlfriend. There's threats being made. Just come in here, take a look. We'll let you in the back door. Like, I wasn't playing around at that point. I got a store with like 10 people. I'm not going to have somebody go take out trash and get the hell beat out of them because they took out trash. No. So the cops like come in, and he might have had an idea of what was going on, but they literally like boxed him in. So like, imagine a car parked, there's 2 on each side and one a third behind. And I'm like, fucking A, dude, let's go. So he ends up getting in trouble because he had things in the car that he shouldn't have had.
Lovely.
The K9 unit comes. Right. They like, I have a feeling they were familiar with this. Right. So they knew what to do and how to do it. So my one cook comes up to me and he goes, dude, I got a bunch of weed in my car. He's like, that drug dog is going to sniff it out. And I'm out. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, okay. What do you want to do? And he's like, if I could bring it in, that would be really cool.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right. He's like, I could go take out trash, stop by my car, pick it up, bring it in, and it's in a baby bottle. Okay. So to tell you how, and it was enough to fill a baby bottle. Yeah. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I go, okay. Go out there, take out trash, stop at your car, make it look like you're grabbing a water bottle or something out of your car, throw the baby bottle in the trash can, put it in a new trash bag outside. So he does that. He brings it in. The cops are in the store because they're talking. They're back there.
Yeah.
So he ends up putting it in a freezer. And he's like, no, this is going to be great. Like, he was all like, so he puts it in there. The cops get done taking their statements. They end up taking this guy, the boyfriend, away. Because he had drugs in the car, all that stuff. They ended up giving her a ride home. The car's, I don't know if the car was towed. It probably was. So that got situated. And then my employee was happy because he had fresh weed. When he
yeah.
But like, I just remember it being like, when he pulled it out of the freezer, he's like, it's going to be a good night. I'm like, I just want to be you.
At least someone was happy.
Right.
That night,
But it was just so like, it was one of those where like, it all just happened so quick.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, in my head, I'm going, fuck. Like if she shows up here tomorrow and she's busted the fuck up, I'm going to feel terrible. Yeah. Plus I'm being threatened. The people in my store are being threatened. I'm just doing it. I got to do it.
That's a real world event right there. You really feel that, you know, you feel that.
Yeah.
That like, you know,
the worst.
It's weird when you hear about it, but then stuff like that actually happens to you and you're like, okay, well, I have to do this. Also, were you a manager of the Burger King and the Taco Bell?
No, it was a KFC Taco Bell.
Oh, were you manager of
I was
the kid?
both.
Excuse you.
No,
Dual
I'm actually
management. That's pretty sick.
I'm actually still certified by KFC to make chicken. So like I know like the ways
you know the 11 herbs and spices.
I don't know that, but I still have the handbook about how to make it properly. And then the worst thing, so small town problems, drugs, right? So we had, I'm not going to say her name just because.
Right, Jessica.
Jessica. Jessica had a meth problem. And Jessica had a problem with paying her bills because Jessica wanted to do meth so much. Jessica also had a child. Jessica was getting evicted. Jessica showed up to work at 7 o'clock in the morning when we were opening. She was our chicken cook, fucking gone. High as fuck. So I'm like 18. I'm opening the store and I'm going, oh my God, like this, no. She's going to hurt herself.
Yeah.
She's going to mess something up.
She's not making chicken.
Right.
Like, you are in no condition to make the chicken.
So I call my general manager who lived in Akron. So this is in Burbank. So it's a good half an hour drive.
Yeah.
I call him and I go, hey, this is the deal. Jessica showed up like this. Like, we keep covering for her. She's taking advantage of it. You got to do something. He goes, all right, if you think you need to, fire her. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And I go,
it's a good conversation to have with someone who's method out of their mind.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, all right. So I call her into the office and we sit down and I go, Jessica, you need to go home. You need to go home. And she's like, are you firing me? I go, not necessarily, but you need to go home, clean up, straighten out. We'll talk tomorrow. I'm not fucking leaving. I showed up here and I'm like,
Oh, great. This is how you're leaving.
Right. And I'm like, oh my God. And I go, all right, Jessica, we don't need you anymore. We're good to go. You know, we'll pick up your final paycheck when you need to. We'll mail it to you. Well, there's nowhere to mail it because I'm getting evicted. Okay.
She
all
sure
right.
showed you on that
right.
one.
Yeah.
And I go, okay. All right. Well, how am I going to tell my kid that you fired me? Right. And I'm like, who? And it like, I just like, 18-year-old. And I'm like, you think I'm cocky now? I was way cockier then. And I go, well, you could tell your kid that you couldn't put down the fucking pipe. I go, and that's why you got fired. So you could get the hell out. But just like the after effect of like being like, oh, dude, I fired a mom.
Yeah.
Oh, I fired a mom. Like I easily could have called the police on her because I'm sure she had something on her.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Last I heard, she had her kid taken away, which is probably for the best.
Right.
Like she was a shit show. When she was clean, she was great, but she just wasn't clean that often.
Yeah.
So like I had to fire this woman, and then she tried throwing it back at me. I'm going, you get the fuck out.
Yeah.
But you said real life situation like that. What like?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then on top of it, I had to do my job and hers. So I should have, in hindsight, I should just let her stay.
Yeah.
Not that it's as extreme as that.
Yeah.
But being the person that has to talk someone down is never a fun time.
Yeah.
Right.
That's no matter what it is, if it's alcohol or pills or whatever, that's never a fun time.
It's never a fun conversation. Yeah.
I'm gonna just throw it out there. If you're on the side of that who needs the talking down, you should probably thank whoever did that for you.
Yeah.
When you come to.
Yeah.
Because it's always a couple hours. It's always
a long-winded conversation.
Yeah.
Again, real world events.